today is, it's called the Art of Sculpting Space. You guys are like, what? It's really about the two things that I think are hardest for most people to do in their own homes, and what really defines a designer space from a space with a lot of stuff in it. So it's about composition and the art of vignetting, the small moments that seduce you to pause and notice something really beautiful. In merchandising, they seduce you to buy something, but at home it's to either feel something or do something. So these little collections of things that we place around our room, or don't, so I'm going to be teaching you how to do it. So I think it really is a definitive frosting. And what it can do for people that come to visit you, and how it makes you feel. The emotional connection between the space and your heart.
Which is somewhat ironic, because you just described some of the thought processes we go through when we're thinking about how we're going to do our topiaries.
That's why we are married.
Yeah. we think of the space and we think of the plants, and how are the people going to react. We actually have, for front entrance, so it shocks people, we had it's not pretty, but it's a model that we had made of the front entrance bed. It's about a yard long, and then we'll make little cardboard cutouts of our topiaries, stick them in different locations in the bed, and then we'll get at eye level, take pictures, and start seeing how is this going to appear, what characters will you see it from what location. And we really think of it like that, the whole setting, not just popping characters in the garden. Sometimes
Every
we do.
angle, how it looks and how it feels. Yeah.
Sometimes we just pop them in the garden. I don't want to Captain Hook and Peter Pan, which, and sometimes you get lucky, I'm sure, in decorating, it's the same thing. But when you go to UK, you'll see Peter Pan and whatnot there. It's a great location. The only reason they're there is because that's the only place in the UK we could find them. And it ended up being one of our best places.
Mm-hmm. I think people forget the logic that goes behind what we do. They just think it's pretty. And that's why I think a lot of people can also write it off. But there is not a science, but there is a reason for everything to be where it is, and it is connected and having a conversation with something else. Otherwise, everyone would do what we do. If we could just plop it all in and be like, hey, see you later.
I think we have. I think in horticulture you have a little advantage though, because flowers go better. You don't have the clash of colors. I don't want to say.
Best designer, yeah.
I don't want to say every color flower goes together, but yeah, I think you have a lot more leeway than you would in other. I'm having a hard time thinking of a flower mix that would just be ugly because they're flowers.
Yeah, nature doesn't mess up, and I always say that in my business too. When people are looking for that perfect palette, which is usually beige, I say look to a flower or a fruit or a vegetable, and there are at least 5 colors that she's done. They never fail. They're always right, even if you cut open a salmon. That gray with the white and the black and that peach is perfect. It's the perfect tone, and you can't mess it up. It's just what percentages you use around your room and how you vary it. But she's always right, and you're painting with the best colors, for sure. Anybody else?
Questions? Well, what would be an example of one of your favorite designs?
Of my own or in the world?
Of your own.
Of my own. I would only go to this season because you just, I don't know, do you think you just get, I don't want to toot my horn, but don't you think all your most recent stuff is usually your best?
Unless there's something that, for emotional reasons, my favorite set of topiaries to this day is the Pine King, only because at that time in my life and what we were doing and what it entailed. But when you talk about, for not other than that, yeah, your last should be your best. And,
yeah.
If our last festival isn't the best, then maybe it's time to get someone else to be in the job. It's supposed to be better. I mean, at Disney, I'm sure everyone in your personal life,
you have to talk yourself
as you go on it. First year, our guests certainly demand it.
Yeah, I agree. And because our work is so public, you can't repeat yourselves. He's not doing private gardens, and I'm not in your house, alone. And I could go into all of your houses and do the same thing, and you never know, and you think it would be great. So I think my most favorite thing in recent past was also a sentimental one, and you haven't seen it yet, but it will show in the next couple of weeks, where I have my crew is my family. If we're going to spend this much time together, we better like each other a lot. And if I know you better than my daughter some days, you better be great. So they've been carefully curated, and They know how I see, and I did their apartment. My design assistants share this tiny little crash pad that is 6'9" wide. Just remember, that's like as tall as some people, and like 20 feet long with a little loft in it. It's a crazy New York closet apartment, and we turned the cameras on them, and I got to dig into really who they are, not who they are through me, but that was a challenge for me to know where the line was, where I start and they end. But we share such common threads and loves of design that it was pure joy. Digging into Suzanis and Ecots and Indonesian fabrics and all the things that I think most of America is a little frightened of. Because they're designers, I could dig a little bit deeper and push harder. And the result was so emotional because it was all these people who they love doing something, giving a gift for them. And Jessica said it was like Christmas and all the gifts work together and they're all right. It's not like that sweater, you're like, thanks, It was just, I mean, you watch it and you just fall. I don't know anybody who's going to cry when they see that once. That's my favorite. We'll see it in a couple weeks. I hope that's some hype.
It's
true though.
For a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, soft fest in a couple of weeks.
And what do you see as the biggest, working with limited space, or what do you see as the biggest challenge in your work overall, the most challenging situation for you?
People's fear. That's the biggest challenge and has been since I started doing it on television 10 years ago. It's saying that you don't have to line it all up, it doesn't have to match, and it doesn't all have to be neutral. Every neutral needs friends. It's all about balance of old and new, masculine and feminine, living and not living, floral, etc. So it's a checklist of balances, and I really think people are so fearful to make a mistake that they don't do anything. It's a real psychological hurdle, and it's about turning this off in them and turning this on. And most people really struggle with that, and they want it just to be unoffensive, and that's why they keep gravitating towards this beige lint. That makes nobody really that happy. That's why I'm always there, but they feel it's safe for some reason. So it's a lot of digging. And why do you get stuck in the first place? Why we keep putting a Band-Aid on that? Let's just get to the wound and fix it. It is very much like being, I'm not saving the world in any way, but like a doctor. You have to go in there and figure out the real problem before you put a Band-Aid on it. Otherwise, you leave and then it falls apart. That's not what you want. And in TV, everything follows you. So if it falls apart, you're done. It's got to be really good. Because people love it when it's bad. But that's the biggest challenge by far. Yeah. People are scared. We don't dress in beige, It's just like a room.
I'm the khaki guy at my house.
Would you do beige on beige? No. Right?
In a house like that.
So we hear from an unnamed source that you've been trading tips with some of the Imagineering staff here at Epcot.
Oh, I'm glad that's what you heard. No. I didn't know about.
Is that any good tips?
With Debbie?
Yeah.
I was in Debbie's world yesterday, which was so much fun. And you guys have a library here that is quite seductive. It's just sample on sample on sample on sample. She was telling me something about the Buddha and that China wouldn't let it be moved. We couldn't strap him or put anything over him. So it's like, how do we change the display without offending? Because it is a religious icon. And all the different challenges she has, which were phenomenal and fascinating. I could just let her talk at me for hours. And I think knowing that she has anybody who can make anything like that. Fake rock, that guy. Fake bust, him. Having such a small, tight team, and we do what we do, we don't really need to make a clay bust, but just having that library of people too was pretty humbling.
And at Disney, you get real spoiled to that. Yeah. There's what, 60,000 of us, so chances are any skill or craft or trade you know, there's going to be someone who can do it, or if not in the company, someone that works here a lot and has done it before.
You guys are lucky.
You are spoiled.
Yeah, I'm slumming compared to.
I'm not going to tell
Disney
you.
people,
It's
yeah.
pretty good here. So,
Well,
Yeah,
and
I
you're
got a
creating for
question.
fantasy. It doesn't have to function in an everyday manner in some ways, like a fake rock.
Right.
Some things.
Right.
Which you can do just the purely decorative, which I'm so
Right.
envious of.
and the nice thing about a festival is 75 days, and then you get to do it all over again next year. That's also the bad thing.
It's a lot of
You
work.
know, I would assume, at least when you go into different places, you start all fresh with new stuff.
Yes.
We have the same stable of topiaries. Every year we add 2 or 3, a good year maybe 4. So that's the most difficult, I mean, overall the most difficult thing is doing better every year, but the particular is how do we use these same topiaries in a way that's fresh and the guests feel like it's new? Because there's no getting around the fact, you know, topiaries are very expensive, very time consuming. No company's going to do 60 new ones a year if they're all old ones out. That we really struggle with that. We'll start during this festival. We've already had some preliminary discussions walking. Right, what do we think about next year? We do which ones are we going to do? So it takes a long time to come up with these ideas and how you're going to do that.
We struggle with the budget. There's never
So do
enough.
we.
Same struggles. Yeah.
My question is, if I have limited time in the park today, which 3 gardening, topiaries, or exhibits would you recommend that I do not miss?
Well, Genevieve small. That would be the first one. And you know, all the talks in Festival Center I think are really strong. If you're talking about out in the garden, not saying these are necessarily the best. Butterfly House, Pixie Hollow, Green Living Garden. That's back by France, so you may not make it that far back there. But that's a really neat garden in the sense that, you know, our main goal is to provide something beautiful for our guests. That's what we want to do. But if you can accomplish other things while you do that, we're very concerned in this company, as many are, about environmental issues. Dan can second this, or anyone, I mean, it kind of throughout the company, that's what we think about. And we like to tell that story to the guests, but no one wants to be preached at. So if you go to this Green Living Garden, it's a beautiful Tuscan garden. I mean, it's the kind of place you walk, and I don't know how many people I've said, wow, I love my backyard. The living wall, pergolas, I mean, it's giant containers. But the backstory of this, or the little undertone, is Tuscany is a very dry climate.
Not humid, yeah.
And they've been living there forever. They've had to learn to do with plants that can take periods of long drought. So what we're trying to get the idea is, you know, you can use some of these types of plants and still have a beautiful landscape. You know, you don't have to put down St. Augustine grass and, you know, spend 50,000 gallons of water a month watering that yard. So, I like that one a lot. And the butterfly house, I mean, it just speaks for itself. Walking in those butterflies. Unless it's cloudy, I'm trying to educate all the guests. If it's cool and cloudy, they don't fly.
Oh.
Butterflies, they have to have sun on them because they're cold-blooded and they have to warm up to be able to move.
So what do they do?
They just sit, and it looks like, I walked in there this morning, if you didn't know better, you'd just see a few on the wall, you'd say there aren't any butterflies, because they're very good at camouflaging themselves, because they want to get eaten. So a lot of them get on flowers that the bloom matches them, so they look like a bloom. They'll fold their wings up if they're, and get underneath leaves,
And they just freeze.
and they just sit there until the sun comes back out and warms up.
So they were cold-blooded or warm-blooded?
Cold.
I have a question for Genevieve. Do you have any top tips on a budget that you could do in a space to freshen it, but also be careful about what you're spending?
I have heard that one from the first thing that isn't a really big surprise is always color, and paint is the most inexpensive way to change a space and the boldest way to change a space very quickly and very inexpensively. However, if you don't want to cover your room in a big bold color, which most people don't, I'm learning, there are many ways to do little punches, and the throw, the all-powerful throw that's so overlooked, is a beautiful punch of saturation that can be brought into the softscaping of almost any room beyond the kitchen and bathroom. A poof, a metallic poof, golden, bronze, silver, adds a little reflection and a little zhuzh and a really flat room. Bringing in textures, again, the throws and some nubbiness to the pillows gives a sense of depth and pattern. Always super inexpensive to do. You need 2 or 3, and then you have that pause. It's a vignette, but it's soft, that people are attracted to and want to sit on, and it does change the landscape of a room really quickly. I mean, we could go through each room and break it down, but off the top, if we're talking in general, it's always going to be through color, and those punches you can bring it from. Even in a bathroom, having a big bowl of soap that includes the scent, and a sense of big color under a bird cage or in a metal bowl, or so many ways to display it a little bit more seductively.
Thank you.
Okay. I can go on and on and on. So I'm just gonna stop it right there.
Along those lines, I was just thinking, talking about, arranging this place around your house, how can you better personalize it? Like I have a lot of family photos, and I'm always like, well, should I just make an entire wall of photos, or would they go better here? How would you go about?
Are you overthinking and not doing anything?
And I don't do it, I don't touch it.
Yeah, I know, right? I know you. If it's about photos, I think it's really just about getting the first one up on the wall, that grounding piece that you can build your world off of. But we tend to overthink which one that will be, and so we don't do it. But again, you don't have to match the frames. I think a variance of texture and color, natural wood, whites, blacks, metallics are way more interesting than everything matching. Instead of lining them all up, stagger and you have to let the eyes dance in space. So if you don't create movement with your things, we stop looking at your stuff. So if it's up a stairway, we stagger them, not lined up. One's in an upper corner, we give them about 1.5 inches apart, and we just start piecing the puzzle together. But they have to create a story at the same time. The images do. Again, don't overthink. But would this person know the person I'm putting next to her? Does their dress connect? How does this black and white look next to this color? You have to feel it. And you stand back, you go in, you stand back, just like the Christmas tree I always say. You have to sculpt it. And that's why I titled my talk the way I did, because it isn't a science, it's an art. So slowly go in, you can't mess up. I think that's what people forget, in that it is one of the most forgiving mediums. If it isn't right, then take it down. It's just a nail. It's really, you're not sculpting David, Like, let's just really think about what this is in our life. It's just our space, and it's ours. So we can keep going back and forgive yourself if it's not feeling right, and patch and paint. And I think you'll have a much smoother process when you allow yourself to mess up, because no one's judging you.
And that's the same philosophy we use in gardening here, and people should at their home. There are so many things in this festival that what you see is not like what was on the plan, because you put it in, plan's just on a piece of paper. You put it in, and our leadership team walks it, or just someone looks at it and says, well, that doesn't look right. Then you, of course, ours oftentimes involves a crane. But
That's just a nail.
But usually the crane's already there. And you already have your 300
Because
gardeners.
you have a crane guy.
Yeah. We have lots of crane guys. And then you just move it. The same thing at your house. People, I don't know if I'm going to buy this plant. I don't know if it's going to live. Well, you're never going to know until you get it.
Right, you got to have it in.
Because we are always trying new plants. Now, we do test the lot. We're doing 3 million bedding plants a year, 3.5. You want to make sure they're going to live. Don't be afraid to mess up and pull it out and move it again. It happens all the time.
Yeah, maybe it's saying you can mess up. That means that in the end you don't have to. It's okay to. I mean, I can't tell you how many things I buy for a space. I'd rather overbuy and have that safety net of editing. I mean, it's just like words. You write something, you cross them out. This doesn't fit here. It's the same thing we do. I return, 40% of what I buy. I want the capability of using whatever satiates me, so I want it all in front of me. It's very debaucherous. But then I'm a clean liver at the end, and I return the excess.
Well, we use the excess. there's, we always overbuy 10-15% and we use it. I always say we could, if we had bought double the amount of bedding plants we had, they would be somewhere in that park. Because really the last 2 weeks of the festival, you're just looking, how can we get more color in this? Because we know from our guest surveys, next to the topiary, color is the thing they want. And that drives our thought, can we put color here? The flower tower's on the stage. We've never done that before. That was a last minute Patrick's idea. So, you know,
When your stuff dies, if you don't
Yeah.
use it, that's kind of.
you may not know, but
Yeah.
all the, if you go in the park, all the bedding plants,
Yeah.
we'll have to replace every one of them halfway through.
I don't have that problem.